Back to our Buddhist vocabulary video, and these are the words that when you finish taking this class, I absolutely hope that is not just an understanding that you have and you understand these words, but that they are part of your daily practice as you move forward and walk the life as a Buddha. Are you ready? Let's start with B for Buddha. Buddha truly does mean the awakened one and the enlightened being, right? And there has been many Buddhas, and there'll actually be more Buddhas after. I thought that was really interesting. There has been 5 historic ones in our, we'll call it the Buddha Eon, and the one we're studying is Sattara, and he's the most historic one of this time. So it is said that there'll be another one. In fact, someone even suggested that as soon as 2045, which, why would there be another one? Because we've forgotten the teachings, and it's time to be reminded to go back to these principles. So let's keep moving. The next word we have is C for caste, and caste truly is what you were born into in the Buddhist teachings. You were either considered to be a priest, you were considered to be a warrior or a tradesperson, which is like a business person, or a laborer. And if you were not born into those 4 castes, then you were considered an outcast. And Buddha had a hard time with this. He said, wait a minute, it's not what you're born into, it's how you live your life that makes you a noble person, right? So let's move on. We're looking at the D's. First D we have is dukkha. What is dukkha? It is the suffering that we do, right? We've talked about this word quite often. It's those things that we cling to. It's those expectations. It's those physical pains. It's those mental anguish that we feel. And Buddha's teachings and the Buddhist teachings is all about getting rid of our dukkha. If you remember, dukkha's translation is suffering. We've heard that word so often. And it's not focused on suffering, it's focused on getting suffering out of our experience so we can become enlightened. Let's keep going. We're still in the D's. When we say Dharma, there it is, the Dharma wheel. And look at the spokes on that wheel. We have been going through this process together. Every aspect of that spoke in that wheel is important for the wheel to move, right? So we've learned that. And so Dharma literally means the teachings. All the teachings are wrapped in that wheel and taught and brought to you. So let's move on. We're looking at the E's now, and we're talking about enlightenment. And that's what this class is about. It's to be understanding and what Buddha was. He was the enlightened one. He became fully awake. So E, enlightenment, is just that. And to be an enlightened being literally just means fully awake and aware. And I love that. So let's keep going. Still in the E's, equanimity. I always have to pause when I hear that word. You almost have to take a break. Equal, right in the middle way. And as you know, it's not clinging, pushing, holding, grabbing, grasping, and it's also not pushing, avoiding, and trying to stay away. It's some kind of beautiful place right in the middle when we look at equanimity. And I was happy to hear that equanimity is actually an emotion. I just love that. Let's keep going. I'm in the H's now, and we're looking at hindrances. If you were driving down the road and something got in your way, you would call that a hindrance, right? In Buddhist teachings, he talks about the 5 hindrances, and it's the desire and the hatred and the anger and the greed that gets in our way and prevents us from living a life without suffering. So hindrances truly is those things that are blocking us and preventing us from being, from not suffering. That's our H. Let's move on. Impermanence. You've heard it so many times. I put up that beautiful post about standing at my daughter's grave, and a same place where 5 years ago or 15 years ago would have just brought me so much sorrow and loss and crying. And, I stood there back in my visit to Vermont, joy, abundance, feeling so blessed and so, appreciative to the lack of grief that I feel because of the joy, and recognizing that moment will also pass. So impermanence is just that. It is the good, the bad, and the bad, and the different, right? We can experience these things, but they're fleeting, and they will stop, and they will change. Okay, moving on. We're in the J's now for the word jhana, and jhana truly is translated as contemplation, to sit, to be sightful, and to be mindful. So you'll hear jhana many times if you go and research anything, the jhanas of, and they'll reference them. So just know that jhana's translation would be contemplation. Moving on, looking at K's, guess what? Karma. There it is again. Karma literally translated as act or action. And as we know, it's cause and effect, right? So karma, people hate when I say this, everything in your experience right now directly lines up with your past karma. I say this with the law of attraction too. Everything is in your experience because it lines up with you. So many similar energies between those two aspects, right? So if you hate where you're standing, really be mindful and be aware of creating and producing good karma so that tomorrow it can be a little bit better, and so on. The K's. Looking at the M's, we have Mara, and if you remember, she's the Hindu, goddess temptress of destruction. She showed up underneath the Bodhi tree with Buddha, trying to tempt him away from being enlightened, and of course, he paid no attention to her, right? So Mara is the temptress of destruction. We would see her evil. The devil would probably be a closer translation, but can't go there because we just can't. But that's as close as I can get to you. Moving on to the N's, Nirvana. The highest evolution of Nirvana would be enlightenment. And we know that Nirvana is now, it's in this moment, and it's also in every moment that we have. But it's also that place or that state, it's a state of mind which Buddha was striving for. To get to Nirvana meant he didn't have to come back and he was free of all the suffering. Let's move on. We're in the N's when we look at the word noble, and noble, had to put that in, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths. Remember, Buddha was told he was either going to be a warrior or a nobleman, and he chose to be noble. So noble in the context of Buddhism literally just means honorable and wise. Moving on. We're looking at the word Pali, which is really the Hindus' sacred language at the time of Buddha's time, okay? So Pali Canon you'll hear quite often, and in fact when you look up any word on Buddhism, you'll see the Pali translation and you'll see the Sanskrit translation, and those are just how the words are, it's the language and how they came to be. So let's keep going. We're almost done. We're in the P's for precepts. You remember these, the 5 precepts, the what not to do, right? And we took on that beautiful project where we all had to come up with one we were going to focus on. The killing, the lying, the intoxicants, the harsh speech, the 5 things of what not to do in Buddhism are the precepts. So as close as we could get, we called those commandments, but we wouldn't use that because of the connection to, the outcome of a God. In that connection, it's really our own suffering. It's those things not to do to live a beautiful life, the rights and the wrongs. Let's go on. We're in the R's, renunciation. Renunciation in this form in the Buddhist teachings truly does mean to renounce, and to be a holy person would be like a nun or a monk or a Buddha who did not have sex, didn't do intoxicants, and followed the Dharma's teachings, right? So renunciation literally is to renounce and to live a noble life, or to live a holy man's life, holy person's life. And we use this in Buddhism because we talk about renouncing and not doing those things that are harming us. So there's kind of 2 ways to look at that. 3 more words, stay with me. Samsara. Remember, samsara is here, right? It's having a physical form, and in Buddhism there's many realms. So the realm of having a physical body is one of the realms, and so samsara is in that realm. And I think I referenced the word earth Earth, meaning this is because we're here in a physical form on Earth, but there's other dimensions too. So not to confuse you, but keep it to this, that we have to keep coming back to this place and this body and these experiences and this soul reincarnation as we experience and learn and become enlightened. And then we don't have to be here anymore, right? So that is samsara. Almost done. Sangha. We know that. It's our Buddhist community. And Buddha wanted it to be open to all. He didn't want it to be the priest and, and exclude women. He wanted everybody to be part. So he called that huge community of Buddhists following the Buddhist teachings the Sangha. And that's the picture we have with us holding the Sangha. Last word, and we are done, and I so appreciate you staying, listening to all these words. The last word is Sanskrit, and you've heard that before. When I say namaste at the end of my videos, it is the Sanskrit word for my spirit honors you, and hello and goodbye, and all that, right? So Sanskrit, interestingly enough, came from the Pali language, which was the sacred language of the Hindus at the time, and it was considered to be a language that was used, well, let's just call it the upper class. I thought that was pretty interesting. So that is it. That is the video of the Buddhist vocabulary, and thank you for being part of this series. And again, watch this video again if you need a better translation. These are all the words that you're going to either hear or you've heard or I want you to know as we follow this class. And there's thousands more. I've only highlighted a few. Thank you. Oh yeah, let me end with it right. Namaste.